Chose to do the modified checklist for autism in toddlers on my cousin's child, Addie. Addie is 2.5 years old. She is my godchild, and I love her to bits. I think that it's interesting to give a test like this to a child you know so well, because it wasn't possible to do this test in person. I did it over FaceTime. It was very interesting going through the questions with my cousin, because again, you know the child so well. So when we got to question number 2 was, have you ever thought that your child might be deaf? We both laughed because we refer to Addie as our sassy child. She hears when she wants, when she hears what she wants, and she's very selective about what she decides she wants to hear. So, you know, as we're going through the questions, we're kind of like laughing at some of them, reminiscing about something. So I don't know how true to the testing environment, screening environment, this really was a good representation of, just because you know that child so well. But I feel like going through the testing, my cousin had some issues overthinking some of the questions. I think that as a parent, you know, you never want to think that there's something quote unquote wrong with your child. And I think that she was seeking to understand each of the questions and really like think about what Addie does and what she doesn't do. And instead of just thinking and answering them instinctively. And I think that was an issue she really struggled with question 8 and question 12. Question 8 was asking, does your child have an interest in other children? And she responded with no. And I think that really has more to deal with the fact that she was thinking of Chase and comparing Chase and Addie, which is her 4-year-old brother. And you couldn't get 2 kids that are more different. Chase is rambunctious and wild and will play with anybody, and wants to talk to everyone. And Addie's reserved and shy and a little bit sassy, and she's not looking to, you know, initiate play with other children as much as Chase would be. And I think that she was comparing the two instead of thinking of Addie as her own separate entity, and came up with no. And when we went through the follow-up interview, so once we went through the MCHR, we had to do a follow-up interview for question 8 and question 12. And once we went through that, you know, of course we realized, yes, she's interested in children. She'll play with them in the playground. She compares other kids to herself. Look, mommy, there's a big girl like me. She smiles at other kids. She's just a little bit more shy about it. So she did pass 8. And then 12 was both an error on my part and a little on my cousin's, but mostly mine, in just the way I delivered question 2. The question 2 was about loud noises, and I only got through the vacuum example. And as soon as my cousin heard vacuum, she said, oh, no, yeah, she has an issue with that noise. And, you know, immediately answered, you know, that she had a problem with the loud noise. So when we were going through the follow-up interview, you know, we went through loud noises, including doorbells, car honking, loud music, and she had no problem with anything but the vacuum. And we come to find she handles it well. She's calm about it. She usually leaves the room, but she will cry when she is overtired. So she handles it appropriately, but she does struggle with the vacuum cleaner, not necessarily loud noises. So she ended up, I rescored her on MCHAT RF, and she you know, passed all components of that exam. Screening, sorry. As I finished up the test, some personal reflections that I had regarding it were parents might be a little bit hesitant for participating in these screenings because there's that fear of something being wrong with their child. I feel like no parent wants that overwhelming feeling that there might be something wrong. And I feel for many parents that's a reflection on them, or they take it as a reflection on them if there's something wrong with their child. My cousin is a young mother. She's 25. So I think that puts her defenses up a little bit of, you know, already feeling that stigma, and then, you know, looking at a testing and feeling that's a reflection on her. And I feel like that can go across the board for many parents. So that's something I noticed about parent reactions. I also noticed that when we finished the test, the screening, I said to them, you know, Addie passed. And, you know, my cousin high-fived her and said, Addie, you passed your first test. And, you know, it's a mark for them, for her development, I guess, and knowing that she's developing the way she should be. But it's a reflection on we passed our first test, not, so I found that interesting. I found my cousin really struggled with the way that some of the questions were phrased, or like the movement, how the movement around the eyes questions she really struggled with. From a diagnostic standpoint, I understand this question makes sense. But from a parental standpoint, who's dealing with a terrible two, making a regular movement seems par for the course. So some of the questions I think are hard for parents to distinguish. I think the MCHAT RF is a valuable tool, and I really enjoyed not only learning about how it is used, but also putting it into practice. I think that